So just yesterday, the Manjaro team released a picture of Manjaro ARM running on a Pinephone. So today I'm going to talk about the implications of this and also what my thoughts are. So if you're new to this channel, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. I'm aiming for 1,000 subs and any help would be really appreciated. So now that's out of the way, let's get started. Good afternoon everyone and welcome back to the channel. So this is the picture in question. So I'll go through the actual features of Manjaro ARM on the Pinephone in a couple of minutes, but we're going to have a look at this picture just for now. So this is what it looks like. They could have gotten a much better picture. Like, this is potentially one of the worst product photos I've ever seen for anything. I don't know how they managed to do something this bad, but anyway. So this is what it looks like, and right now it is very, very much an alpha. So before we go into that, if you don't know what Manjaro is, basically it is a distribution of Linux that is based on Arch, and much like with the desktop version of Manjaro, the mobile version is also based, or the ARM version is based on the ARM version of Arch. So just getting that out of the way. So there's nothing too special in these comments section down here. It's just everyone freaking out about this, and there's this one person who's basically trying to say that Manjaro is horrible. Anyway, doesn't particularly matter. So this is the actual forum post on the Manjaro forums about this. So the Manjaro ARM project is proud to announce the first alpha release for the Pinephone. This image is running the 5.3 kernel from this link here, which is designed for the Pinephone and the PineTab. So the Manjaro ARM project isn't by any means new. So it already exists. It existed for a while. You can already run it on a Pinebook right now, and it's not an alpha. But this specific version is designed to be running on a mobile device, and that is what's different here. So you can actually go and download this today if you really want to, and you can run it in a VM. If you can actually get an ARM VM running, if you can do that, go ahead and do it. Or if you really want to, you could compile this yourself and run it on something like a Librem 5, but that hasn't really been tested much. There are apparently some people who've had a bit of success playing around with that, but stability is not going to be guaranteed at all. So I'll take a look at the Pinephone in a minute, but there's a brief description of what it is in here. So perhaps you're in the line of work where security is a must, or a hardcore Linux enthusiast. Or perhaps you've just gone through enough of Android and iOS and you're ready for something else. The Pinephone may be the next phone for you, powered by the same quad-core ARM Cortex-A53 64-bit SoC using the popular Pine A64 single-board computer. That is an absolute mouthful to read. The Pinephone runs mainline Linux as well as anything else you'll get it to run. So you may know that Android is based on Linux, but the problem that a lot of people have with Android is that it runs a lot of proprietary software that has been developed in-house by Google or within the Android team, and a lot of people aren't happy with the direction that it's going. So there's been a lot of these small projects coming up, like Manjaro ARM running on a Pinephone, Ubuntu Touch, and a couple of others. I've got a list on the Wikipedia page right here, so there's also things like Postmarket OS. This one here, Asteroid, is a smart device thing, so we're not going to go over those. And Replicant is trying to basically beat Android, minus the proprietary stuff. But other things we've got are like Sailfish OS, SHR, Tizen, Ubuntu Touch, WebOS, LuneOS, and PureOS. So PureOS is what is running on the Librem 5 at this stage. So we'll get back to this. So the purpose of the Pinephone isn't only to deliver a functioning Linux phone to end users, but also to actively create a market for such a device, as well as to support existing and well-established Linux on phone projects. All major Linux phone-oriented projects, as well as the other FOSS OS, are represented on the Pinephone, and developers work together on our platform to bring support for this community-driven device. That is a mistake there. That was hard to actually read. So yeah, you can get this running right now. There's absolutely no trouble getting it running, but there are a lot of basic things that are missing from it, because this is very much an alpha right now. So there's lots of stuff that doesn't work, like phone calls and texting, which are pretty much essential for a phone. Doesn't have power saving options, which is very common for Linux, but is a very, very big problem on mobile devices, and I'm sure will get fixed at some point. So it doesn't have a notification bar, which is also a problem. Screen is not scaled correctly. This is very much an alpha. So basically what they've got here is they have pretty much just got it compiled and running on a Pinephone. There's pretty much no mobile specific features on here. It's just a proof of concept that it can actually be done on a Pinephone. So The interesting thing about the Pinephone is, unlike the Librem devices that Purism sell, so you've got the Librem 5 and the Librem 5 USA, which basically the difference between those two is the Librem 5 is just the same phone as the USA version, but the USA version has basically it's just built within the US and has a completely mapped out, I guess, delivery chain and supply chain. And if you want to support something that is entirely built and made within the US, then you're going to pay a lot for it. But if you don't want to pay that much, then there is the option of going for the cheaper Librem 5. I haven't really looked at the specs much, so I'm not sure how it compares too much to the Pinephone, but they are both, by the looks of it, fairly low-powered devices relative to some of the stuff that you can get. But for the Pinephone, it's only $150 for the early adopters version. I'm presuming the price will go up when it actually goes for mainstream sale. Okay, so why should you care that Manjaro for ARM exists running on a Pinephone? So, as I said, there are already other projects like Ubuntu Touch and other things here like Plasma Mobile, wherever that was, and Postmarket OS and Pure OS. The reason that you should care, if you are at all interested in this stuff, so if you just want to run Android and you want to just live your life like that, you want to run iOS, go ahead and do that. That's perfectly fine. But when it comes to the open source OSs that you can actually run on a phone, the reason that it's important for more projects to exist is to get more interest into this. So if you're a Manjaro user, for example, and you didn't even know that this exists, now there are so many more people who are potentially interested in what the Pinephone actually is and what the project in general is and the overall, I guess, concept of it. And regardless of whether you're running Manjaro for ARM or you're running Ubuntu Touch, you're running Plasma Mobile, you're running Pure OS, having more eyes on this code and having more money in this field will greatly push forward the development speed of the 64-bit ARM platform. So even if it never becomes a mainstream platform, it's going to improve so much over the next few years. And even if it just remains in the same place that something like desktop Linux is, where it's just another option that exists. You have Windows, you have Mac OS, and then you have this other field of Unix-y stuff that exists. It's another option that people can run, so you don't have to be stuck within the, corporate sphere of the main two platforms. And the same thing exists for mobile devices. You have Android controlled by Google, and you have iOS controlled by Apple. And this is going to be, even if it's never a mainstream thing, it'll be a third option for the people who are either the enthusiasts or they are people who want to just do something that isn't what the main corporations are doing. And I think that's actually a really good direction for the industry to go towards. So I know that I've talked about how phones are pretty much just a meme and you don't really need to be carrying around some really powerful computer in your pocket. But I do think that there is some productive use to actually have a phone with you, obviously. And if you're going to be doing that, then I think that there is some benefit to knowing exactly what sort of code is running on your device. And as much as I don't particularly care about the open source and FOSS community as a, strict way to live my life, I take a very pragmatic approach to it. I do think that if the option exists, then it's probably for the best to be running it if it's a good alternative. And having these competitors in the sphere is the only way you're going to be able to actually push forward a good alternative, because the only way to push these open source and free projects forward is to have more eyes on the code, more people working on the code, more people promoting the code. And really, the only way you can do that is by having more and more projects. Because yes, you can just have one, but if you just have one and that becomes massive, then it's going to be the exact same problem that we already had, where it started as this open source project, and there is still the open source core that you can work with, but the version that's actually being run on devices is this sort of proprietary version that's built on top of the open source version, and it's not exactly the same thing. It's kind of Linux, but it's not really, and I don't want to see that happen again. I want to see basically what we've got pretty much with desktop Linux, where it is a good alternative, even if it's not the main alternative. So I hadn't really looked much into the Pinephone before I did this video, and I do think it's a kind of cool device, and I'm maybe going to get one, I don't know, because it is if nothing else, even if it's just this tiny phone that no one ever runs. It's a cool piece of tech for sure, and if it just ends up being a cool piece of tech history, that's just cool as it is. And I do want to see what the state of Linux on mobile devices actually is at this point, because I know of things like Ubuntu Touch and Pure OS, but I don't know how well they run. You can obviously get some idea from running in a VM, but the only real way you're going to understand how it will work as a operating system is to actually run it on hardware and to actually use it in your daily life, because you're not really going to get much of an idea of how well a phone operating system runs just by running it on a computer. You have to actually experience it as a phone. And obviously for something like Manjaro ARM, at this stage, that's not reasonable because, as I said before, you can't do phone calls and texting, and you don't have power saving options, you don't have notifications, and these basic things are just not there. But for some of the more complete projects, there might actually be some, I guess, productive way to run them as a daily driver. So, I don't know, I might consider doing that. I haven't actually really thought too much about it just yet. So, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over in this video. I'm kind of just repeating some of the stuff I've been saying. I don't particularly want to keep doing that. So, if you like this video, remember to smash that like button and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. If you want to see more videos like this, remember to subscribe and ding the little bell icon down below because it'll really help the channel out. Down below, I've got my Discord and my Library links, so go check those out if you want to chat with me or you want to see my videos on a platform that isn't YouTube. Up on that corner, I've got the playlist this video is in, so that'll be the tech news playlist, so obviously it'll be older stuff, but maybe there'll be something in there that actually interests you, and I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I've also got my support links and also my Twitter and my Mastodon if you actually want to get video updates. So now that's everything for me, and I'm out.